Today we heard read the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount of Jesus. These passages are known familiarly as the Beatitudes, the Latin word at the beginning of each petition. We've known this word as blessed or blessed, but it can also mean fortunate or happy or delighted. We're fortunate that Jesus placed these blessings at the beginning of his sermon. In the weeks to come, we'll delve into the rest of the sermon and hear some rather tough love coming from the mouth of Jesus. But for today, we'll hold on to these blessings or promises of the gospel, especially as they relate to our other two Bible readings. Our first reading from the prophet Micah contains one of the most cherished and oft-repeated passages in all of the Hebrew Scriptures. The Lord commands Micah to speak a word of reprioritization to the people. Sacrifices and offerings have their place, but the true desire of the Lord is to see the people do justice, love kindness, and to walk humbly with their God. These may seem to be mere platitudes, but in reality, they're quite a tall order. Doing justice requires action. Getting to Washington, D.C. last weekend took a lot of people, a lot of work. Loving kindness requires effort. Walking humbly requires modesty. For those of us with stubborn hearts and prideful self-confidence, we might just hear how impossible these commands are for us to live up to. And the news isn't going to get much better, even as we look to the blessings of the Beatitudes. Jesus blesses those who, at the present time, do not feel blessed. The poor in spirit, the meek, those who mourn, the reviled. In a few weeks, we'll hear Jesus say, "Be perfect, therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect." Whenever the gospel requirements make us feel that we need to throw up our hands in despair, that's precisely when we know that we need to fall on our knees at the foot of the cross and beg for mercy. Our second lesson speaks of the cross, and Paul makes the bold assertion that we preach Christ and him crucified, a stumbling block to the Jews and foolishness to the Gentiles. When we're ready to admit that we can't, but that God can, then we're in the proper posture to walk humbly with our God. Clinging to the cross, we might do as Paul urges, that we who wish to boast might boast in the Lord. This is when we're closest to being pure in heart. This is when we might be found to be merciful in the eyes of God. This is when our efforts to minister to this world might, in some small sense, be regarded as hungering and thirsting after righteousness. Still, the world's masses cry out with voices of objection, unhappy with these radical suggestions of the Beatitudes. Their objections point out the startling nature of Jesus' blessings. Jesus blesses those who do not now feel blessed. Jesus proclaims the kingdom of heaven where God will heal the creation. Those whose spirits have felt crushed by life will experience an uplifting. Those who grieve will experience reunion and joy. Those who could not fight back will experience victory. Those who long for right relationships in the world will experience fulfillment. Those who have offered mercy even when it was rejected will receive mercy. Those who have tried hardest to allow God to work in them will find that even trying to stay pure in heart has its rewards. Those who have tried to make peace in the midst of the violence of this world, who have sought with great effort to bring reconciliation, will find that God has used their ministry. Those who have endured persecution for fighting against the darkness of this world will experience the favor of God, who endured their hurt along with them on the cross. I close with a quote from a Methodist scholar who I read in preparation for this sermon. She writes this about the Beatitudes. Jesus' blessings come to us as promises. They express what will happen in the kingdom of heaven. Yet they also teach us about God's work among us now. God redeems our efforts, empowers our forgiveness, and draws out the spirit of purity within us that lies beneath our weakness and corruption. We may not find our efforts easy, but God notices every step we take that reflects the values of the kingdom of heaven. God will bless us, even amid all the ways life weighs us down and the ways we resist sin in this world. End quote. Let us hear and rejoice in God's blessings. How fortunate we are indeed.